Hello, it's Hee-Jae here, and let's talk about the Bible. Before we get into the specific verse or the chapter, I want to talk to you guys about Bible study in general. Because as Christians, I find that we only open the Bible on Sundays during church service. And at that moment, we only read the verses pertaining to that sermon that day. And that's it. Well, some might do devotions. More power to you. And you guys get to spend a little bit more time with the Bible. For the rest of us, or actually for the most of us, because even devotional times, it's not actually a study of the Bible, but it's reading and getting reminded of how we should be behaving. It's not necessarily an in-depth study. So for the most of us, though we might be very interested or very intrigued of what the Bible is saying, it is hard for us to actually go in and study the specifics within the verses. And only when we come to that desperate time when we need the word that we actually open the Bible and try to understand what is written within the pages. But it is hard. It is really hard for us to do that because we have never practiced it. We have never done it before. So what do we do when we try to study the Bible? What do we do to ease ourselves into the Bible study zone? We tend to go find a book. We tend to go find a book with an author, a reputable author who we think that knows the Bible better than us, who we think that could teach us about the Bible. But the problem within that notion is that the person who wrote that book writes it with his or her experiences in the background. For example, even in the story of David and Goliath, the author of the book writes it with his experience in the background. So when the way he sees the story will be different from the way I see the story and the way you see the story. So when we read the book, we are not only getting what is in the Bible, but his perspective also. Now, having said that, there is no problem in learning about somebody else's perspective. However, the problem I see myself getting into is that I start to depend on the book. I start to find a book that actually explains it to me so that I do not have to work at it. So what happens is I am being spoon-fed by the author. I'm not learning. The author's intention, I believe the author's intention is so that by reading his book, we could understand the Bible and therefore we could go back into the Bible and actually study it and make it our own. But the actual effect that happens is that I start to depend on the author, the book, and then from there, I keep on looking for the next book, the next book, the next book, instead of the Bible itself. Even in devotionals, because the devotionals, the verses, every day there's a verse for a devotional, or a verse or a chapter or a passage. But the thing is, the passages, even in a devotional where there's only the Bible verse, the verses are divided into portions according to the author's perception of the Bible. So by putting those verses into those everyday portions, the context of the verses may be skewed into the author's perspective. So when we talk about every other book other than the Bible, we're talking about somebody else's perspective that is melted into the words. So at times, I find that we are driven further away from the Bible through marketing and the way things are set up in this world. Not the intention of the authors, though, mind you, but because the way things are set up, we are driven further away from actually reading the Bible and reading somebody's perspective of the Bible. So in the core of this thinking, I believe that we are unique. That you and I, we are fundamentally different. The way we read a verse and perceive it is different from each other. So the way God speaks to you and the way God speaks to me is different. The way God will approach me would be vastly different from the way He would approach my wife, my sister, my parents, because of their experiences. In the same way, the Bible will talk to you in its specific way because it is God's Word. And we only have to open it and try to find it. So why not? Why not share with you guys the arduous process that I go through in reading the Bible and studying it, so that it might encourage you to study the Bible, the method that I use, just me and my Bible. So let's go and discover what He has to say to us. This is how I do it. So come along, enjoy the ride, and let's see where all this leads to. Thank you.